You are listening to the Two and Out CFL podcast, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network.
It's Travis Currah and Sheldon Jones. Believe it or not, we are at week 15 of the 2024 CFL season already. It is just flying by. Sheldon, did you watch any of that debate last night?
I watched the entire thing because I am a glutton for punishment.
I watched it too, and hey, I have to admit there was several laugh out loud moments, but it is what it is.
Did you see the video on Twitter where they spliced him saying that stupid stuff about the dogs and the cats with the Simpsons song about Springfield? It's hilarious. Oh my god. So terrible, but what a power move by Kamala at just going right in for that handshake all the way over across the stage. That was a power move. I like that a lot.
I was actually, I was impressed by that for sure. But yeah, Americans going to the polls in November, and some in Canada are quite engaged. I just kind of look at it as entertainment.
Yeah.
It's, best of luck, friends in America. I wanted, now a few weeks ago, Sheldon, you remember that piece by Matthew Grills? It was talking about the CFL and it's time for it to scrap its silly rules and conform to the NFL and go to 4 downs and all this. Well, since we've got only 3 games this week, Donald Mitchell is a listener to the show. He engages on X with us, and he emails into the show. He emailed sort of like a rebuttal to that piece from Matthew Grills, and it's quite long, and I think with the amount of work put into it, I can't just ignore it and let it go into cyberspace, never to be heard from again. So I'm going to open the show by reading this piece from Donald Mitchell, who sent in to the mailbag at twoandout.ca, and it is quite long, but I'm going to go into it, and let's see what you think about it. Sheldon. So he starts by saying the opinion piece advocating for the Canadian Football League to fully harmonize its rules with the NFL, essentially becoming NFL light, misses the mark entirely. It disregards the CFL's rich history, unique identity, and the passionate fan base that cherishes its distinct brand of football. The proposal to fundamentally alter the CFL's rules in pursuit of a group of Canadians who have abandoned their fathers' and grandfathers' CFL for their viewership is misguided and potentially disastrous. To misquote Mark Twain, news of the death of the CFL, in brackets, something that I've been hearing for most of my life, is somewhat premature. As my friend Rod Peterson has often said, the CFL football guys know how to produce exciting games. The CFL leadership have no clue as to marketing those exciting games. Point number 1, NFL Light, a recipe for disaster. The suggestion that the CFL should abandon its unique characteristics to become a minor league for the NFL is a recipe for its demise. The CFL has thrived for decades precisely because it offers a different flavor of football, one that appeals to a dedicated fan base who appreciates its nuances and traditions. Stripping away these distinctive elements would alienate existing fans and fail to attract new ones. The CFL's larger and wider field, 3 downs, and emphasis on passing creates a fast-paced, exciting game that stands in stark contrast to the NFL's more traditional and methodical ground-and-pound style. The NFL would be loath to admit it, but it's been moving closer to CFL-style play for the past 2 decades. Attempting to replicate the NFL experience would dilute the CFL's appeal and render it a pale imitation of its southern counterpart. Point number 2, the CFL's influence on the NFL. The assertion that the NFL's evolution towards a more open, pass-oriented game is solely attributed to its own internal development is ahistorical. The CFL has long been a hotbed of innovation with its wide-open offenses and emphasis on passing, influencing the NFL's strategic and stylistic evolution. Players like Doug Flutie, Warren Moon, and Jeff Garcia showcased their talents in the CFL before making their mark in the NFL, demonstrating the league's ability to develop and nurture exceptional talent. The CFL's legacy is not one of imitation, but of innovation, and its impact on the NFL should not be underestimated. Point 3, embracing the CFL's passing legacy. The notion that the CFL should abandon its passing game in favor of a more NFL-style approach is misguided. The CFL's reputation as a passing league is well-deserved and remains a core element of its identity. The league's rules, with their wider field and 3 downs, naturally encourage a pass-heavy offensive approach. This creates a dynamic and exciting game that appeals to fans who enjoy high scoring, aerial assaults. The CFL should embrace its passing legacy and continue to showcase the talents of its quarterbacks and receivers rather than attempting to emulate the NFL's more balanced offensive approach. Number 4, the freedom to follow multiple leagues. The suggestion that fans must choose between following the CFL or the NFL is a false dichotomy. There is no law or unwritten rule that prevents fans from enjoying both leagues. Many Canadian football fans appreciate the unique qualities of the CFL while also enjoying the spectacle and star power of the NFL. The 2 leagues can coexist and complement each other, offering fans a diverse range of football experiences. The CFL should focus on cultivating its own passionate fan base rather than attempting to compete directly with the NFL for viewership. Number 5, the CFL's authenticity and charm. The criticism of the CFL as being unscripted and lacking the corporate polish of the NFL misses the point entirely. The CFL's charm lies in its authenticity, its grassroots appeal, and its connection to Canadian communities. The league's games are often unpredictable and full of surprises, with underdog teams and unheralded players rising to the occasion. The CFL's imperfections are part of its appeal, and its fans appreciate its genuine, unvarnished nature. The league should embrace its unique identity and resist the temptation to become a sanitized corporate product. In conclusion, celebrating the CFL's Canadian spirit. The CFL is a cherished Canadian institution, a source of national pride, and a celebration of our unique sporting culture. It is a league with a rich history, a passionate fan base, and a distinct brand of football that sets it apart from the NFL. The CFL should not attempt to become a watered-down version of the NFL, but should instead embrace its unique identity and continue to offer fans a thrilling, authentic, and distinctly Canadian football experience. The CFL's future lies not in imitation, but in celebrating its own strengths and traditions. By staying true to its roots, the CFL can continue to thrive and inspire generations of Canadian football fans for years to come. I couldn't just let that sit in the inbox and never get it out there. What did you think about that piece from Donald Mitchell, Sheldon?
That was perfectly written, well articulated. It was a great defense of our great game, and I'm pretty sure that guy was just engagement farming in the beginning anyway. And I think a lot of us fell for it, which is fine. But you know, I'm sure there are people that do feel that way. There are, NFL elitists in Canada, and I like to I like to think I obviously love the CFL more than the NFL. But I don't not like the NFL. I've worn my Packers shirt on the show here before, gotten in trouble from my father to not do that.
Oh, did he?
Oh yeah.
I love that.
I shouldn't be wearing an NFL shirt on the CFL podcast. But the leagues are both rich in history. One of them is definitely more popular. One of them is more grassroots. And I really can't say anything more than what he wrote there, because what he wrote is is basically perfection. It explains every reason why the CFL should not become NFL light, and they have an NFL farm system for right now. It is the UFL forever, how long that league lasts, and they also have college football, and that is their feeder system. They don't need a Canadian feeder system up here. So I hope that, we won't have to hear about this for a while. We'll obviously have to hear about it next year when the NFL starts up again, because that's when it always happens. But now is the time of the year when the CFL and the NFL have to share a space, and it's tough because, what he said in the piece there about marketing and the CFL not doing its fair share of marketing. I was actually listening to the Waggle podcast early this morning, and they had Randy on it, and he was talking about how the owners are now spending more money on marketing, and we've talked about these marketing dollars and contracts now, and so if that's something that is a positive, he thinks it's a positive, and if that's something that can help grow, then that's good. And just thank you for writing that out, because that I'm sure I've wanted to write something like that for a long time, and there's no way I could have written it that beautifully.
The only thing I'll add is, and I don't want to compare the Grey Cup and the Super Bowl, because now the Super Bowl has really become sort of a pop culture event. It's almost like the Grammys or the Oscars more than a football game, really. And you talk to Grey Cup diehards, and that's more than a football game too, but it's sort of built from the ground up by fans, and the fact that, 95% of the tickets are available for fans to buy is awesome. For a Super Bowl, like, what do we got? 0.1%, of tickets available just for you and me to buy. It's only the 1% can afford tickets to the Super Bowl. Like it's not. It's a corporate event now, and it's a corporate event, and all it is a giant 4-hour long commercial now. It seems there's a football game, of course, but everything is branded. They have, people or companies pay $3, $4, $5 million for 30 seconds of ad time. They have more commercial breaks than they usually do. Like it's just a corporate, fundraiser, basically. And the Grey Cup is a CFL tradition. It's a Canadian tradition. It's sitting down with your family to watch a game of football. And yes, everyone, gets upset about the halftime show because it can't be perfect for everyone. But that's the one thing that, CFL fans will fight over is the halftime show. Other than that, it's just a great game, and it's accessible, and people go to the cities, and just like yourself, you are one of those people who go to every Grey Cup, and I'm going to start that this year. And, go to every Grey Cup. It's the party, it's the family atmosphere. That's not in the Super Bowl. So, great point. Yeah, my 15th Grey Cup coming up this November in Vancouver. I cannot wait for that. And Donald, thanks so much for sending that into the show. It was a pleasure to share here on Two and Out. Now, the Elks, the Riders, and the Bombers are all on bye in Week 15. But we'll start and talk about Bomber news here, because we got unfortunate news that Chris Streveler is probably, he's going to miss the rest of the year. He has torn 3 major ligaments in his knee following the controversial hit from Miles Brown during the Banjo Bowl. Man, it sucks to see him miss time. The conversation about the hit still rages on, and it will rage on now probably for even longer, because Streveler is going to be out for the rest of the year. And man, he brings more than, just passing acumen or whatever a quarterback does to the team. The energy, the physicality that he brings to that locker room is definitely going to be missed by the Bombers the rest of the way. And it just sucks to see this, man.
Yeah. It really does suck. I don't want to talk about the hit anymore. I think that's enough of that. But the thing about, we talk about marketing previously, Chris Streveler is one of those players that the CFL could easily market, and they have actually, just because of, him wearing that giant fur coat and cowboy hat, shirtless, in the Grey Cup
Legendary.
parade. Legendary, yeah. And like, when was the last time a backup quarterback signing was front page news on the CFL website? Like, he is the perfect kind of guy that the CFL can market, and it just really sucks seeing him injured that way, seeing it just, that's a terrible injury. Some people blow one ligament in their knee and they're gone for a year. So I hope he can, get success. I don't know if they can do it all in one or if he has to have 3 surgeries or how it's going to work, but hopefully he can just, get back in that rehab and hopefully be ready to go for the beginning of next year. But that's probably going to be a tough ask.
As far as replacements go in Winnipeg, both Jake Dolegala, most recently with the BC Lions, and Brian Scott, most recently with the Argos, are on their way. And we'll talk about those Banjo Bowl ratings, Sheldon, which I was pretty surprised by. They were on CTV, the first game on CTV since the 80s for the CFL, and ratings were about 100,000 less than last year. So, TSN, I guess, is not the problem, but certainly an interesting, because it was a close game, it wasn't a blowout by 6 touchdowns. So we'll see how this goes for the rest of the season, but it's definitely an experiment and something that fans have been pushing for a long time. Not off to the best start.
No, and I think, again, it comes back to marketing. I don't know if they marketed it enough on CTV, on other mediums, that the game was going to be played there. I know on the broadcast they're marketing that, but at the same time, there are people who may not have a CTV subscription. I know it's free to air cable, but only if you live in certain areas. Like, you can't just turn a TV on with rabbit ears and get it anymore. That just doesn't exist.
And I do think you need a cable subscription to stream it online. And that's
right.
Actually what I did on Saturday. And I have a subscription, so yeah, that's how I watched it.
But there are people who just purchase a TSN subscription. And I believe that they could go on and watch it on TSN Plus. I'm not certain, but
yeah, I think they still had the augmented the data enhanced feed,
which
was still available.
But at the same time, not everyone's going to want to watch that. That could be taking away from their viewership. So I'm interested to see how. Like, I'm not going to say that it's it didn't work out after one game. We have to see how it goes for the rest of the season. But I think I'm just wondering if maybe a simulcast with CTV and TSN would have been the better go here, because then, you're getting it on for people who don't have that TSN subscription, but then you're still giving it to people who do have that, if that makes sense. I know that's what the Grey Cup is going to be in the playoff games, but these Saturday games are exclusive to CTV. So we'll have to see if certain fans who only purchase the TSN subscription for the season are willing to, pay extra to get cable to get CTV, or if they're just going to go, sit at a bar or something, which great for bars, but not great for viewership.
Week 15 starts on the West Coast as the BC Lions are 4.5-point favorites over the Toronto Argonauts, and the Lions are going to be celebrating the 2000 Grey Cup team and putting them on the Wall of Honor. Names like Louis Pasaglia, names like Sean Millington are going to be heading to the Wall of Honor to celebrate that 2000 Grey Cup team. And the gunmetal jersey is back for the BC Lions. I think one of the most popular jerseys over the last decade or two that's come out in the CFL. And man, they put some hype behind this thing, and they're going to be wearing that bad boy again Friday night. I know fans are excited to see that. Oh,
and the players will be pumped up too, because like I said before, when teams get special jerseys, I think it just, makes them want to play even better, just because they walk into the locker room and that first time when they see the equipment manager has laid out this new kit for them to wear, and I think it just gets them pumped up. And yeah, I love the gunmetal jerseys. It's honestly my favorite alternate jersey. I can't say, because I still love the Riders retro jersey the best, but at the same time, as far a non-retro jersey as an alternate jersey, the gunmetal jersey is by far the best jersey in the CFL.
Yeah, they hit a home run with that one, and I think it has been altered. Like the originals, it was pretty tough to decipher who was on that jersey, but they've added sort of the orange outline, and I think those jerseys look great. And then, hey, just a testament to defensive back Gary Peters, who will be starting his 100th straight game since joining the BC Lions. He's near the top of the league, at least tied for knockdowns. He's still getting it done. He's always working against the league's best receivers, and Gary Peters is making it happen on that BC Lions defense. This is a big game. I mean, the Lions, of course, at home, they're doing a lot of things. They want to win. But, man, the Argos have kind of... the good news is they've got out to a bit of a head start over the Ticats, right? But they're stumbling. And ever since Chad Kelly came back, there's more big plays in there, but there's also more turnovers, and they haven't been getting it done. And this is a very difficult assignment, traveling to the West Coast to play the Lions, who are surging and have put the ship right back on track. This is a tough task for the Argos to win, and hey, we're going to find out what they're made of, I think.
Oh, for sure. And it's, they're kind of going down. And like you said, BC's coming up. I think Rourke has been getting better every game. I know last game he threw 3 picks, but 2 of them definitely weren't his fault. They went off the receiver's hands, but he's getting into a groove. And honestly, the Lions, they have the Bombers in their rear view too, because the Bombers are on their little winning streak as well. So it's a huge game for both teams. BC wants to keep that first place and try to get some separation there, especially with Winnipeg not playing this week. They can get that separation for the short term at least. And yeah, Hamilton, if they can string a couple wins together, then that last place, or that last playoff spot in the East, could certainly be up for grabs. Yeah,
the Argos are 500. The Lions are 7-6. Argos 6-6, and the Bombers are also 7-6. So, I mean, the good news here is that the Lions have been doing really well at home. They're 4-1 at home. The Argos on the road, though, 1-5. Not good. There's some stark, splits between the home and road records for both teams here. So it does look like it heavily favors the Lions to pull out the win here and move to 8-6 and have first place in the West until, hey, the Bombers get playing again here. But a matchup that I'm looking at is William Stanback versus, I guess, the Argos defense, because Stanback has been rolling lately, but the Argos rush defense is near the tops of the league with Saskatchewan. And actually, if you just look at total yards, the Argos have given up the least rushing yards in the CFL, but per carry, the Riders are a little bit better that way, but only about 75 yards a game the Argos are giving up on the ground. I know Stanback has started to get more involved in the receiving game as well, so he's valuable that way for Nathan Rourke and the Lions, but I think that is just added to the attack of the Lions some real balance that we haven't seen before, and that's good because that offensive line, sometimes this season, they've been pretty strong in protection. But once defenses didn't have to guess, and all they had to do was pin their ears back and rush the quarterback, the Lions offense got into trouble. So Stanback is valuable that way to keep defenses on their toes, and this is probably the best season he's been having in quite a while. I think his MOP odds, I think, on the score were plus 20,000. So, hey, it's a long shot, but if he keeps getting 130 yards a game, maybe he's in the conversation.
Yeah, imagine if
it's a weird MOP race. I mean, regardless.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. But imagine if he was being used from the beginning of the season. Like, he probably, if he would have been able to stay healthy, he probably would be a front runner. It's strange that, Jordan Maksymic gets a lot of praise for being this offensive guru and, play calling master. And yeah, they score a lot of points, but they were relying heavily on Vernon Adams, running the ball for them instead of using William Stanback early on. And then, obviously that led to some injury issues. So it's good that they got William Stanback involved. And yeah, I honestly think that he's going to have a great week this week, just because the Argos are going to have to be guessing, and with Nathan Rourke's quick thinking, they can make play action really work for them, but they could also fake out the pass and hit with a run, or toss it off to him. Like, I think he's going to be heavily involved, and I think they've realized their error kind of at the beginning of the season, and they'll keep using him going forward.
Brady Oliveira did miss a game, so keep that in mind. But William Stanback is the leading rusher in the CFL by 44 yards, if my math is correct there. He's got 26 rushes of 10 yards or more this season. And if he gets 62 yards this week, well, then that is a 1,000-yard season for William Stanback. The Argos, on the other hand, I've noticed that and I talked about it on the Week 14 recap, they've gotten away from the run. And I know they fell back to Ottawa, and they were down, 4 scores at the half last week. But, I mean, if Chad Kelly's going to be passing the ball 56 times again, or at least trying to, that's not... they're in deep trouble. So it sounds obvious, but they got to get a handle on those turnovers, and they also need to have a more balance to that Argos offense back, because I do think they've lost that part of their game.
Oh, for sure. And BC is gonna, like, I know Toronto's defense is pretty good, but BC their offense is firing at a different level right now, and they could score within 2 or 3 plays in a drive. So Toronto is going to have to do everything they can to keep their own defense off the field, because their defense is going to be broken down, I think. So if Chad Kelly doesn't, control the ball and limit his turnovers, and if they don't establish a running game, then yeah, it's going to be a long day for them.
Yeah, and again, the BC Lions have been able to pressure the quarterback since Matthew Betts has come back. So if Chad Kelly's going to be dropping back 50 times, Matthew Betts and company are going to have their ears pinned back, and they're not going to have to guess what the Argos are going to be doing. The Argos have given up 20 passing majors. So have the Lions. The Elks have given up 22 and the Ticats 23. So that's definitely the bottom third or half of the league. I see it as being a pretty big Nathan Rourke game. He's $9,000 on CFL Fantasy, so he is my quarterback and my captain going in to Week 15 of CFL action. Saturday's game on CTV is the Hamilton Tiger Cats home to the Ottawa RedBlacks, where the RedBlacks are favored by 4.5 points, the over-under at 50.5. Now, much like Friday night, where we're going to find out what the Argos are going to play like when they're up against the wall and faced with a tough task, I think that's the same for the Ticats here. After that big win on Labor Day, they go into the bye. how are they able to keep up that momentum going into this game against Ottawa, who can clinch a playoff spot for the first time since 2018 when they lost in the Grey Cup to the Calgary Stampeders on a slippery Commonwealth Stadium surface. But this RedBlacks team, they're physical. Drew Brown protects the ball. Like, now I start to see his name start popping up in MOP conversations, especially with Cody Fajardo missing a few games and last week's uneven performance, we will call it. But hey, the RedBlacks surprising a lot of people, and being able to clinch a playoff spot should have them fired up going into Tim Hortons Field on Saturday.
It should, but honestly, like, I don't think they even need to be more fired up. Like, I don't know if you've seen these videos of like in their locker room with Bob Dice, you know, giving them his speeches, and just like, I can tell that they've bought into him. Like, I was kind of iffy on him as a head coach when I know he had his first kind of stint as an interim head coach in Saskatchewan, and then when the first year in Ottawa was a rough one for him. But he's quickly become a very good coach, and he has this team ready to go, and they've bought in, and they want to win. So I think, and let's face it, it's not Bo on Labor Day. Bo on Labor Day is a different animal here. So I think
that's true.
I think that, you know, that bye week was not at the right time for Hamilton, because if they would have been able to try to capitalize on that momentum after beating Toronto, would have been better for them. And I think Ottawa, you know, they're just, they want to get back to the playoffs, and I think they want to do that as quickly as possible here. So I think it's going to be a tough night for the Ticats.
The thing for the RedBlacks is, and I know, look, Hamilton's not that far of a road trip from Ottawa, but they've just been so much better at home than on the road. So, hey, if they go get a big road win in Hamilton, obviously that would be helpful. But they're playing against a Ticats team that has their backs against the wall and can keep playoff hopes alive, believe it or not. Like, especially if Toronto loses to BC and the Ticats win, it's not out of the realm of possibility. I know it starts to, you know, when you're doing math that way, your team's already in trouble. But the RedBlacks do play Montreal next week, and then the Ticats have the Lions. So it's not going to be easy for them, but hey, you know, you'll hear the cliches from the coaches. Go 1-0 this week. Go one game at a time, and maybe they got a shot here. I'm still fascinated by the running back situation in Hamilton. I know that Greg Bell has been playing great since he's been starting, but James Butler is kind of on the sidelines there. You'd think, I don't know, we've seen the Elks being able to get 3 starting caliber running backs onto the roster at the same time. You'd think working them both into the offense wouldn't be a bad thing for the Ticats.
You would think that, but obviously something's going on behind the scenes, I think. I think that he's having issues with Milanovic. That's honestly what I think is happening. Kind of the same way where Bo and Milanovic had their issues earlier in the season. I just don't know if Butler is the guy that Scott wants right now. And even though he's a very good running back, it just doesn't seem like he's the guy. And I was trying to look it up while you're talking, but you threw to me too quickly. But I know that he put out a tweet saying something like it's been real Hamilton, or I love Hamilton, or something.
It was something like, I'm not going to forget you, Ticat fans, or something
very
like
cryptic.
That.
Yeah. So I don't know if that's him saying like, hey, he's been shut down for the rest of the year and he'll go into free agency next year. I don't know, but like, if he's healthy, like, why aren't you playing him? It doesn't make sense. I know, like you said, Bell's doing well, but at the same time, also, like you said, Edmonton found a way. I think lots of teams would love to have two good running backs that they could have on the field at the same time. It just seems like a no-brainer.
The win that the Ticats had over the Argos might be a case of that Labor Day magic where we've seen before. Obviously, I think being able to motivate your team and being ready to go helps on Labor Day. But after that, can you keep it up? 6 games under 500. They're fighting to stay alive, and the RedBlacks are fighting to get into the playoffs. And I think the RedBlacks have the edge on defense. They've certainly got the edge on special teams. The return game for the Ticats, they've experienced some injuries there, and it's been, kind of a rotating door, and it hasn't been effective. But the RedBlacks, on the other hand, they've had injuries in the return game as well, but they remain effective. It's the lanes are clearly still there, and it seems like no matter who they put back there, maybe not as electric as Devontae Dedmon, but they get it done. Tobias Harris, he could be returning for the RedBlacks. He was returning kicks at practice, and this is good news. Jalen Acklin, a full participant in practice, a scary moment on the field a few weeks ago. And Acklin would, if he's playing, would be returning to his old digs, Tim Hortons Field. I don't know if you read into that, if he would want to, of course he would want to perform well at the place he used to play, but it's going to be a physical game, and we're going to find out. Are the Ticats in it for down the stretch, or are they out of it? Because if they lose this one, well, pack it in, and hey, maybe you might as well see what a guy like Greg Bell brings to the table and see what you have for the future and start looking towards 2025, as demoralizing as that sounds to say out loud.
True, and we also don't know. I think we heard that Taylor Powell's been taken off the 6th game, but there hasn't been reports of who's actually taking the first string reps in practice. I know I've seen lots of people on Twitter trying to ask to get that information, and nothing's come out. So if they're pulling Taylor Powell off, I assume that means they're going back to him because, for whatever reason, Scott Milanovich just doesn't seem to want Bo in there.
Well, Bo has had no interceptions in his last 2 games, and that is clearly what Milanovich wants. He preaches ball security, and Bo hasn't turned the ball over. He didn't against Winnipeg, and he didn't against Toronto, although they lost to Winnipeg. So does it matter? I don't know. Although, shout out to Bo Levi Mitchell for having 21 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Shout out to Rush, Alex, Getty, and Neil for that 1976 album, if my memory serves me correctly.
He better get that one right.
I better verify that. Rush 2112 wiki. Yeah, as a
I love 2112.
Came out March 1976. Sheldon Jones, look at that.
There you go.
I love it. Okay.
If I had a little ding soundboard, I'd go ding. But I don't.
Hey, I'll count that too. The Calgary Stampeders are home to the Montreal Alouettes to wrap up Week 15. The Owls are 5.5-point favorites here, and it does look like the Stampeders are shifting back to Jake Maier as their starting quarterback. You're already shaking your head. Is it the right move? We see Matthew Schultz is now taking reps at practice, and I think going into the season, I mean, nobody expected Matthew Schultz to be Nathan Rourke or Zach Collaros, but I think there was some hope that if Jake stumbled a little bit, Schultz would be able to step in and make plays. Unfortunately, he's been injured, and Schultz has made plays in the CFL with Montreal and Hamilton. I mean, are the Stamps kind of in the same position as the Ticats, where they're just kind of fighting to survive at this point? I guess we'll have to see if taking that week off has helped Jake or not. But it doesn't help if your offensive line doesn't give you time or anything. It's the ultimate team game, but we'll see if he's fired up for this one.
Hey, and they went horseback riding as a team, or looking at some horses this week. So, that team building. Bowling last week didn't work. Shocker. I wonder if the horse whispering will work this week. Honestly, if you were just going to take Jake Maier out for a week to then put him back in, I don't know if that's great coaching. I could see you pulling a guy in a game after he started to let him sit for the rest of the game to watch if that's really what you were wanting to do. But I think they're just scrambling because they don't know what they are as a team anymore. I think really weird stuff because Danny Austin put out a tweet saying he was going to release a full transcript of a conversation with.
Did he ever do it?
Bagleton. He did not release it, and then even Bagleton tweeted on there with like an eye emoji kind of gif. So it seems like there's some insinuation that there's something not great going on in the locker room. But then he didn't release what he said he was going to release, and now he says he's not covering the Stamps anymore. So who knows what's going on there? But from the outside looking in, I think you can see that there's issues. I think that some coaching issues are definitely happening, and honestly, I think if you're going to go to any quarterback, if he's healthy, Schultz is the guy to go to because he is a guy who has had some success, and he is a guy that the teams probably haven't been game planning for. And that could be a spark instead of letting a guy who's never started before, and then you throw him to the Wolves and he throws 5 picks or 4 picks, whatever it was. But it's not quarterback, and quarterback is not the only issue here. I don't know. I think that they're still close enough to Saskatchewan because they're faltering, and Edmonton, you don't know if they're going to win or lose. They're trending up for sure, but they're still in it. They're definitely way more in it than Hamilton is in the East. So I can't see them folding, but they got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out quick.
Well, I mean, nobody saw them folding like they did on Labor Day, and
yeah,
that's
well, I think a lot of us who have known for a while that Mayor's not the guy have kind of thought it might happen. Maybe not to that extreme, but I've been on the Jake Maier isn't good train for a while, and I don't necessarily am happy that I'm right about that, but it's just you have to get to a point, you can't crush this rock and turn it into a diamond if it's not going to work, right? Sometimes you just have to move on from a player if it's not going to be the right guy, and certainly doesn't seem like he's the right guy in my opinion.
Now, if the Stamps, whether they win or lose, their next 3 games are against Saskatchewan, against Edmonton, and against BC. So, 2 of the teams that they're right behind in Saskatchewan and Edmonton. They're clearly not out of it, and you have to play the games. And Montreal, for a long time, it looked like they kind of had a stranglehold on first in the East. But guess what? Just say the Alouettes lose to the Stamps. So far, the Owls are undefeated on the road, 5-0. The Stamps have been better at home. So, that adds to it. But just say the Alouettes lose to Calgary and Ottawa beats Hamilton. Well, then Ottawa's within 1 point, and they play each other next week. RedBlacks, Alouettes. So, hey, Montreal can't overlook Calgary one little bit. And
they won't. They won't. Montreal is one of the best coach teams in the league right now. Jason Moss I would say he's probably the best coach in the league right now, especially because I know they didn't win last week, and this is the one week where, maybe the adjustments later on in the game didn't work out, but he has had his team prepared, and he's had his team able to make adjustments when they needed to. And that hasn't happened in Calgary. So I'm not sure this is the week that Ottawa fans are going to be seeing a Montreal loss to get them a little closer. Montreal against Ottawa, that could be a different story, though.
Is it fair to say that teams learn more from their losses than their wins?
The Riders should be really smart then.
I guess I say that because there have been a few 16-2 teams, that they face no adversity. They get to the playoffs and they don't even make it to the Grey Cup. Mm-hmm. So the Alouettes lose last week to the BC Lions. So you would think that they're going to be, motivated to go into Calgary and correct their mistakes that they had last week against the Lions. And hey, we talked about the Argos last year. They had no adversity until the East Final, and they had no chance to correct it. The Alouettes, I don't know if you consider that adversity against the BC Lions last week, but they're definitely learning experiences from these losses. But you're right. I mean, the Riders and the Stamps and the Ticats should have more education than anybody in the CFL right now.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to be funny there. I honestly do agree with you.
You succeeded.
I think that good. I got a little pop there. Yeah. No, I agree with you. Like, I do think that sometimes when a team is winning games like in a row, I think that can get in your head, and I think sometimes you do need to be humbled. Especially when it's the team that you probably will be facing odds on in the Grey Cup if you make it, because that's kind of what that matchup was last week. I know Winnipeg is surging, but that's the one of the top teams from the other division playing the top team from your division, and it's not like they got their butts kicked. They just weren't able to get it done. But that just shows you that, listen, you guys aren't the world beaters that you think you are, maybe, because it can get in players' heads. You can get a little cocky. You can think that, for lack of a better term, your poop doesn't stink. So I do think a loss every now and then humbles you. 7 losses in a row should embarrass you. That's
a full-on camel clutch if we're talking humbling. It's hard not to quote Iron Sheik without swearing, but
that's what I was like. Am I going to make him do out calls? and I was trying to think of who the Riders' Hulk Hogan would be, but I don't.
We better not go there. Like, if this was Hulk Hogan of 1989, maybe, but right now, I don't think we want to compare anybody to the Hulkster.
That's a no bueno, brother.
The Alouettes are getting some good injury news as Keon Julian Grant and Tyler Sneed have both been practicing in full. However, Marc-Antoine Dequoy has not practiced this week, dealing with a head issue. That's rough. One of the best safeties in the CFL. Certainly a dynamic player, and the Alouettes in the league are better with him on the field there. But getting some healthy guys back in the receiving corps, certainly valuable for the Montreal Alouettes. I do want to see if they can get Walter Fletcher going. He was pretty... the Lions were able to shut him down, but... And I know the Alouettes, they don't really go much for the running game. A lot of it is those screens and things like that. But the Stamps and their tackling and their run-stopping ability, it's not good right now. And a physical team, a sound blocking team like the Alouettes, they could steamroll the Stamps in this one if they are not ready to bring the physicality like you have to. in a football game, to say the very least. But it certainly looks like it could be a nice rebound week for the Montreal Alouettes. All right, I've got my fantasy lineup built, so I'm going to go through that right now. I am betting on a Walter Fletcher rebound, so I've got him as my RB1, and I've got William Stanback as my RB2. I find that I'm spending money. You too? I guess there's only 3 games, but I'm spending money now on running back because you just want the guys to get carries and catches and touches, and I find those guys are quite reliable that way. Nathan Rourke is my quarterback and my captain. I got Tim White at receiver. He's been lighting it up over the last little while. I have Justin Hardy as my other receiver from the RedBlacks, and Keon Hatcher is my flex, while I am taking the RedBlacks defense. They're $6,600, and that leaves me with $100 left over of my fantasy lineup. What's yours looking like, man?
So like you, I do have William Stanback and Walter Fletcher as my running backs. I'm going with Drew Brown for quarterback. I did have Nathan Rourke in there initially, but for some reason I just liked the Ottawa versus Hamilton matchup a little bit better. So I have Drew Brown, paired him with Dominique Rhymes. And then I have Cole Speaker, and I have Shamar Bridges as my flex. And then Ottawa defense. And I have $1,400 left.
You know, if the Ticats win this game, Sheldon, and the Argos lose, the Ticats play the Argos next week. And all of a sudden, that game means a lot. So the Ticats are fighting for their lives, but I just don't know if they got what it takes to beat the RedBlacks. And so far, Jamal Peters, the boundary corner for the Ticats, hasn't practiced this week. That would be a big blow to that defense. So week 15, I'm taking the Lions to beat the Argos, the RedBlacks to beat the Ticats, and the Alouettes to beat the Stampeders, Sheldon.
Ditto. That's my picks too. It's a pretty easy week for picks, I think.
Well, which means 1 and 2 on the way.
Yeah. Yep.
You can rate, review, and subscribe to 2 and Out on YouTube. Well, I don't think you can review there, but like and comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Our merch store is linked up on our YouTube channel and on our website as well, 2andout.ca, but you can get 2 and Out wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up this weekend, the recap show will be Sheldon Jones and Joe Balaneski, who we have had on the show in the past, and I'm sure he is just tickled pink to be on 2 and Out with you inviting him on, Sheldon. So that's awesome. Totally unbiased this week. No Riders and no Elks.
Man, you just stole my opening line. Okay, cool. That's fine.
Or is it a tease? Yeah, a tease for the week.
No, but 50. definitely totally unbiased.
Enjoy week 15 of the CFL season. I'm Travis Currah. He is Sheldon Jones. Take care of yourself and each other.
Thanks for listening. Find more great shows like this at CF Pod Network on Twitter.